video, I'm going to talk you through paste responsive bottle feeding. So I have a doll who is going to be my model, and just provide an explanation of how it's done and why it's done. So I've mentioned earlier on that babies have breastfeeding reflexes, and these are different to bottle feeding reflexes. With a bottle, the baby doesn't need to do that lapping action because the milk is just there instantly, and the baby does more of a sucking, so the cheeks will go in rather than the suckling where you can see the cheeks will go out. Okay, so hopefully that's useful to you. So when a baby is feeding at the breast, what you will notice is when they initially attach, they'll do quite fast suckling. So it'll be suckle, 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 suckle. And that is when they are sending signals to the mother's body to release the milk so that they can drink. When the milk starts to flow, the baby's suckling becomes it's longer, so they'll do what they're doing is they're swallowing, so it's swallow, 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 and then they'll pause and they'll have a rest, and then they'll start again, suckle, 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 swallow, 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 and rest. So what we need to do if a baby is being bottle fed is mimic that as closely as possible, which is where the word paste comes in. So you want to be able to hold the baby as upright as possible. Okay, so traditionally we would have had the baby laying down. What scientists have discovered is that actually it's more difficult for a baby to manage the flow of milk if they are laying down. And it's been linked to middle ear infections and obesity later in life because babies are not able to regulate how much they're taking in at one time. So this is a much more respectful and responsive way of feeding a baby a bottle. So babies as upright as possible. And actually what I find useful sometimes is just to kind of hold, have your hand like this and kind of just support them across the back of their shoulder blades and very gently on either side of their head in an upright position as possible. And what you want to do is you want to get a wide-necked teat, okay, so that with the wide-necked teat, the baby's able to still do those kind of fish lips, so to flange their lips, and they can tilt. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold the bottle horizontally and tickle the baby's top lip. And what that does is it encourages the baby to kind of tilt their head back, so the baby will tilt their head back and open their mouth. And if they don't have a tongue function restriction, you'll be able to see the tongue come out to draw the teat into their mouth, and you're going to support that. So it's very much a cooperative exchange, and you're working together. So the teat goes into the baby's mouth, and there's just enough milk to cover the top, to cover the whole of the teat. So the baby will do that, start to do that suckling, but because the milk is instantly there, you'll see it'll go swallow, 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 and then it's up to the person offering the milk bottle to tilt the milk to kind of be aware of what the baby's doing. Maybe after 10-15 seconds, leave the bottle teat in the baby's mouth, but tilt the bottle down and let baby have a rest. So they'll have that pause, and then they'll start to suckle, just as if they were at the breast. Suckle, suckle, suckle. And then what you can do is, after they've done a bit of suckling for a few seconds, is tilt the bottle back up to horizontal so that the teat hole is just covered with milk, so that they can then move the milk from the bottle into their mouths. Swallow, swallow, swallow. After 10-15 seconds, thereabouts, you don't need to count it or time it or anything. It's just an estimate. Be guided by the baby. Tilt the bottle down, leaving it in their mouth, letting them have a rest. So you're pacing the bottle feed, and you're responding to the baby's cues of suckle, swallow, rest, repeat. Okay, so a lot of people say, well, what about air and baby taking air in? Research has shown that actually it's much easier for a baby to manage the air that they take in, and they take in less air in this way than they do in a laid back kind of traditional position where we are kind of pouring the milk into their mouths, and they don't have the ability to take a breather. So then they will go and take in a lot more air, and then in that lying down position it's a lot more difficult for them to actually burp and get the air out. So I hope you have found that whistle stop tour of information and guidance on how a baby feeds, and how to protect the mother's milk supply and baby's feeding reflexes if bottle feeding is required in the early days whilst breastfeeding is becoming established, or if you're going to be introducing a bottle as part of a combination feeding rhythm. And remembering that breastfeeding should not be painful. If it is, then something needs attention. It could be something to do with the tongue function. It could be the way the baby's positioned or is attaching. And whilst that is being addressed with a professional, making sure that the mother's milk supply is being protected. So I hope you found that useful. I look forward to all your questions, and yeah, send me a message and I'll get back to you, and I look forward to seeing you on the Q&A.